you can run your own VPS for free forever. That's with 4 CPUs, 24 gigs of RAM, 200 gigs of storage, and 10 terabytes of network bandwidth. We'll use Oracle Cloud, and it's tricky, but I've been using it for the last couple of years, and I'll show you exactly how to set it up so you have no account bans, networking headaches, and how to get around capacity issues. Plus, I'll show you tools to manage your server and easily deploy self-hosted applications that can save you hundreds every month. Let's get started. First, what are you getting? A VPS is like a computer that you can rent. So instead of actually having physical access to it, you connect to it over the internet. Just like your own computer, you get full access to the system. That means you can log in as root. And because it's virtual, it's not really a computer you're getting, it's a computer inside of a computer. But this is a lot better than shared hosting because you have your own dedicated resources. And Oracle Free Tier gives you a generous amount of those resources, including compute, storage, and network. For compute, you can choose between ARM-powered Ampere processors or AMD processors. With AMD, you can run older applications that require the x86 or x64, like the old Intel processors. But I recommend choosing ARM because you get a lot more capacity with that. And they even throw in a few $100s in trial credits that you can use to experiment. Now, it's not as easy as a simple one-click VPS provider. There are capacity restrictions and things you need to do to keep your machines active. Otherwise, Oracle can reclaim your VPS. Don't worry, I'll show you tips for how to navigate all of that along the way. So let's sign up for Oracle Cloud and set up our account. To do that, you can just click the link here, and then that's going to bring you to the sign up page. You will need to provide them with your credit card details, so make sure you select your actual billing country and region. And then secondly, sometimes this can be finicky even just to set up your account. So to minimize the chances of your account getting banned or not even getting created in the first place, please just use your real details. Don't use a VPN, a temporary email, or anything like that. Okay, so go ahead and fill that out. And once you've done that, go ahead and hit verify email and click the link that was sent to you. And then on the next page, you'll have to set a password, select your customer type. I selected individual, and that's completely fine. Ask you to set a cloud account name. Make sure you make a note of what this is. You'll need this to log in. Lastly, it's going to ask you to select your home region. This is important. So you can go ahead and select something that's really close to you, but you might run into capacity issues down the road. So to avoid that, you can check this page on regions and availability domains. And then down here, you can see all of the regions and how many availability domains they have. If you want to maximize your chance of getting around any capacity issues, select something that actually has more than one availability domain. If I was in the UK, for example, I would select the UK South region as opposed to the West region because there's more availability domains. And if you're closer to the US, you can pick one of these 3 regions. I've heard that the Ashburn region is usually full. Probably would be better to go with Phoenix or Chicago. And this is really important because anything that you spin up in the free tier will only work for your home region. So it's worth checking this list and picking something that's close to you, but also has a high number of availability. And we're just going to continue with that. Now it's going to ask you for your address, so go ahead and fill that in along with your phone number. Hit continue. Here, it's going to ask you for your payment method. Again, you won't be charged anything for using the free tier, but just to verify that you're a real person, they will do a $1 charge and then reverse it. Also important here is that there's no virtual, prepaid, or single-use cards allowed, so you will need to enter in your real credit or debit card information. So go ahead and enter in either your credit or debit card information in here. Okay, and once you've entered that in, hit finish. It's gonna validate that information for you, and here you can see it worked out for me. Okay, so I'm gonna hit close, hit start your free trial. And if you did everything correctly, you will not hit this error. Or you might get some error like this. And if you did run into that error, you can try again with your actual details, but I highly recommend you do it right the first time because Otherwise, it's going to put you in this whole loop of trying to even just create an account. So if you did all of that correctly, you'll get an email saying you can get started with Oracle Cloud along with your account name and access details. So congratulations, you now have a free tier Oracle Cloud account set up, and now we can go ahead and sign into that account. Just go ahead and click the link in that email, or you can come to the main page here and just click sign in. Here, you're gonna have to enter your account name, your username and password again, click sign in, and here it's gonna ask you to set up your two-factor authentication. Plug in your two-factor code and then hit verify. And once you do that, you'll end up at the home page. Just to really quickly give you an overview, you can go into the main menu here. You can search for any of the resources here. So congratulations, you have your account all set up and you're logged in. Now let's go ahead and actually use it. Before you set up your server, you're going to need a way to communicate with your server. And that is essentially a network. So essentially, this is you. You're going to go to the internet. The internet's going to talk to the Oracle server, and the Oracle server will have the virtual cloud network to be able to talk to your server machine. This virtual cloud network actually has a few different components that we need to set up, and here's what they look like. Now, don't worry, you're not going to need to know all of these details. We're actually going to use a wizard that's going to set up that and a lot of other different details for you. But the main things that you'll need to know is that your VCN will have an internet gateway to let it talk to the internet. It will have subnets to connect to one or more of your servers. And lastly, it's going to have security lists to be able to control access to which ports you open. And just to minimize errors and headaches down the road, it's really important that we do this first before we go ahead and create our instance or the machine. So to do this, we're going to go into our menu here, networking, and then click overview. Here you'll see there's a few different options. We're going to select the first option for creating a VCN with internet connectivity. And you can see that it sets up all of these things for you. So let's start that wizard. Just give it any name. We can leave everything else as default and then go ahead and click next and hit create. It's going to set up all of those different components for you. And once you're done, you can click View VCN. It's going to bring you to this page showing you that it is now available. Now that you have your network available, the next thing is to go ahead and create your server. In Oracle's world, this is called an instance. So go to the menu, go to Compute, and go in Instances. Go ahead and click Create Instance. Give it a name. And here you'll see I have 3 availability domains available. If you chose a region with just one, then this won't be an option for you. And under image and shape, this is, I think, where it's really important to make sure you select the right stuff. The image is the operating system. By default, it comes with Oracle Linux. We're going to change this to Ubuntu, which is still free and gives us a bit more of a standard operating system to work with. I'm going to select the latest here. I'm selecting a minimal build, which means it won't install a lot of stuff by default. And I'm going to select ARC64, which will let me use Ampere processors. So click select. And here is where we configure what kind of machine and how much processing power it has. So click change shape, and you'll be able to select between AMD and Ampere processors. If you look at the details here, you can set the number of CPUs and the memory you want this to use. This brings us to our next decision of how we allocate capacity. And there's a few different ways to do this. You can create one big instance, and that will be a single server, but a powerful one. You can have 4 small servers and split that capacity up equally, or you can split that up 2 ways. I'm going to go with option 3, and there's a couple of different reasons for that. One is your public IP addresses. Oracle only gives you 2, so I can have both of these linked to their own IP. Now, you can get around that IP limitation by using something called Oracle Bastion, and you can refer to the Oracle documentation for how to set that up. 2, this gives me enough of a capacity to run any intensive tasks. And 3, I can use these as a stable production server and a sandbox for just experimenting and tinkering with stuff. So I'm going to set it up that way, but you should set it up based on how you want to configure it. To do that, I'm going to select Ampere, and then I'm going to assign 2 CPUs and 12 gigs of RAM. Click Select Shape. I'll leave everything else as default. Click Next. For security, again, defaults, so click Next. And then here's the important part, the networking. Because we already set that up, you should be able to select an existing network and then select the network that we just created. And because we did that, here you'll see that it's actually going to be able to assign a public IP4 address. And if you come down here, make sure you download both the private and the public key. This will make sure you can actually connect to it when we set it up. Click Next. Here you can specify a custom boot volume size, and I'm going to set that up to 100. And again, this is because I'm going to go with this option here. And everything else stays default, and we're going to click Next. Here it's going to give you all of the information that you selected, so you can go through this and just verify everything one more time. And once you're done, go ahead and click Create. And here's the problem. Chances are you're going to run into this, which is an out of capacity error. Don't worry, that's an expected error. If you see it, I'll show you how to get around it. Basically, Oracle's free tier has limited capacity, so it will only create an instance once that capacity is freed up by some other user somewhere else. So if you saw this error, there's a couple of ways to get around this. The first way is to really just spam the create button. You can click create every 30 seconds manually, but if you don't want to spend your time doing that, there is a script that will go in and do that for you. So let me show you how to use that. So in Chrome, you can go into JavaScript console, and then here where it says top, you can go ahead and select the sandbox for Oracle. And then I found a script on Reddit here that you can use, and I'll paste the script in. Chances are you might not be able to paste it in, and in that case you might need to type in allow pasting. So if I hit enter, yeah, that looks right. Here you can see that it clicked create, but it wasn't able to do it, and so 30 seconds later it's going to go ahead and try to click create. I can filter this by pressing clicked. It went ahead and tried to click that 4 to 5 times. And the cool thing about this script is you can see that it's actually trying all 3 different regions, just in case there's availability. And as you can see, my script actually came in and tried to create an instance, but it failed. So, the script is useful. So you can leave the script running and see if that works for you. Now, if you do get this to work, just know that Oracle does have a policy on idle compute instances. So make sure you have either your CPU being utilized or your network or memory being utilized. But if you follow the next method, you don't have to worry about that. If that script didn't work for you, there is a second method, which is to upgrade your account to pay-as-you-go. You will have to enter your credit card information, and it's going to do a temporary charge of $100 that it's going to reverse. But the good thing is, once you upgrade to pay-as-you-go, you can create your instance fairly easily, and you can stop and start it at any time without worrying about giving up your capacity. So I really recommend doing this if you're able to, and here's how to do it. Go into your menu, go to Billing and Cost Management, go into Upgrade and Manage Payment. So this page should typically let me upgrade to a pay-as-you-go account, but I've just created this account, so you can see that it's still provisioning. For me, it took about half an hour. And here you can see that my plan type is free tier. I'm gonna go ahead and add a payment method before I can upgrade my account to pay-as-you-go. And then you can go ahead and fill in your details here. and now I can go ahead and select upgrade my account to pay-as-you-go. And essentially what this does is it can charge the credit card for any usage that you go beyond your always free. So go ahead and click upgrade your account. Your upgrade is in progress. For me, that pay-as-you-go process took maybe 30 minutes of waiting. Now, if you set up pay-as-you-go and you're worried about it charging your card, you can prevent that by going into billing, budgets, and then creating a new budget with a limit of $1. So you can create that here. And now it can't charge you for anything more than the limit you set. Okay, so I am on a pay-as-you-go account now. So hopefully after your account's upgraded, you can go in, repeat the same steps, and start up your server. But if you're not able to do that and you still need a VPS, let me show you a workaround. I did a lot of research for this and I found something that I would personally use and recommend, and that's something called Zebra. This is not your typical VPS provider, but once you log in, you can go in and buy a server from them, and they have some really good deals right now. For example, if I want a small server, I can sort by price. And here you can see for $2 a month, I can get a good 10-cent server located in the US. I'd personally recommend upgrading that to 4 gigs because you get a lot more network bandwidth for that for just an extra $1 a month. It's also really good because once you have your server set up, you can just go in and instantly deploy a lot of pre-configured templates for popular services like OpenClaw, N8N, Silly Tavern, WordPress. You can have your own Postgres instance here. And if you do this, you can still follow the rest of the tips I give along the way for how to connect to your server, as well as how to make it easy to manage. And $3 a month for a server of this specs is genuinely a good deal, and it's monthly, so you're not signing up for 12 or 24 months like you would do with some other providers. And I do have a referral link in the description that will give you an extra 20% off. So go ahead and use that link if you really do need a VPS and can't set one up using Oracle. If you got around that capacity workaround by either upgrading your account or the script worked for you, then it's going to start provisioning. And here this will let you monitor and manage that server. So once it's started, you can see how much resources it's using. And then here on the details page is where it's going to give you all of the information about that server. Now let's go ahead and start the server. And you can see it's starting now. And now it shows as running. Okay, great. So we have our networking and our server set up, but how do we actually connect to it and use it? Now that our instance is up and running, let's connect to it. We're going to connect to it using SSH, which is a secure way to connect to your remote server. To do this, we are going to have to go into the command line, but don't worry, I will show you another way to do it as well. But here are all the steps that we're going to take. We're going to follow the Mac instructions, but if you're on Windows, it's also fairly easy to do, and here are the instructions you're going to need for that. The first thing we're going to need is the key files that we downloaded. This is a good idea to rename and back up these keys because without these, you will not be able to get back into your computer. And first, we're going to change the permissions on this by running this first command. And we're going to do that on the private key, which ends in key. And you can just drag and drop the key file after writing that command. Great, now we won't run into any permission issues. Now we're going to connect to our server with SSH-I, and then here we're going to drag and drop the key file again. And now we're going to need the username and the IP address of our server. So if we go back to Oracle, here under your instance details, there's a section called instance access. Here you'll see the public IP address and the username. So I'm going to copy the IP address. The username is Ubuntu at IP address. And then if I hit enter, it's going to connect to my server. If you're doing this for the first time, you might see a message warning you haven't connected before. So just go ahead and type in yes. Great, so we're logged into our system. Now, if this feels a little intimidating, another way to do this is to use a software called Xpipe. Xpipe is free for the community edition, so go ahead and download that. And essentially, this lets you manage all of your SSH connections and VPS servers in the same place. So once you've installed it, you can go ahead and add a new remote host SSH connection. Here, I'm going to type in the address. The port is set as default. User identity This is Ubuntu is the username. There is no password. And yes, we are using a key-based authentication. Here, I can either browse and provide it my key file, or I can type in the key file. I'm going to type it in just to show you how that works. And that way you don't have to worry about which directory or where to save that key file. So for the key file, you can open that with any text editor. And then I'm going to paste that in here. There's no passphrase required for this. And I'll give this a connection name. And then it's going to test that connection. And if everything's good, we can hit OK. And then now I just have to double click on this and it's going to open a new terminal window. So I don't really have to remember all of these other commands. It also gives you a file browser option here. So if I go onto the file browser, here I can look at all of the files that are on my server now. And for example, if I wanted to download my profile or if I wanted to download any other files, I can do that using this interface. And I can also upload files here. So hopefully that makes things a little bit easier to manage. Now that we're connected to our server, since this is the first time we've set it up, we're going to run a few commands on here that will update the system and just make it a little bit more secure. So first, we're going to update the system by running this first command. And it's going to go ahead and download all those packages and upgrade your system for you. Because this is a remote server, we want to make sure it's secure. So we're going to install a firewall on here. The command to do that is apt install UFW. Okay, so our firewall is installed, but we still need to turn it on. But before we do that, we want to make sure we don't lock ourselves out. So before we enable it, we're going to allow these 3 ports to connect. SSH is what we're using now. Port 80 and ports 443 are to allow standard HTTP and HTTP secure traffic. Now that we've added those rules, we can turn on the firewall. Here it's giving me a warning saying it might disrupt the operation. Because I've allowed SSH, I can go ahead and say yes. Okay, and now firewall is active and enabled on system startup. This is also a good time to install any other utilities that you might need, like curl or git or anything else that you know you're going to need the server for. And lastly, we're logged in as Ubuntu, but if you need root access for anything, you can always type in sudo su, and that will log you in as the root user. But I would advise you to stay out of that unless you really need it, and you can get out of that by typing exit. So we've connected to our server, we've updated everything, and we've added a firewall inside of our server. I will quickly say that with Oracle, there is the VCN security rules that you might need to change, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute as well. But how do we actually make this easier to manage? Now that we have our server available, how do we make it so that you're spending time using the server as opposed to doing a lot of admin and managing the server? So what I recommend for this is installing Coolify. Coolify is an open source community powered software that makes it easier to manage your server. There's no hidden costs. It's fully open source. There's no limitations, and it gives you a nice UI to manage your server and any applications on top of it. So to install this, you can simply copy this command and paste it back in the terminal, hit enter. And it's going to go ahead and set up all the dependencies and install everything for you. And once it's finished, you'll see a message congratulating you, as well as an IP address and an access port, which is 8000. So if I copy paste this back into my browser, it won't work because we haven't opened up this port 8000. So let's go ahead and quickly do that. Sudo UFW allow 8000. And then like I said, the firewall we installed is here within our computer, but there's Oracle security rules as well. And so to manage those, if you go back to your instance and go to networking, here you'll see that I have the VCN attached here. And if you click on the public subnet and go to security, here there's the default security list. and that has these security rules. This shows you that only port 22 is allowed, which is why we can connect using the terminal. So we're going to add some ingress rules here that open up traffic to other ports that we need. So to add the rule, we're going to type in a range of IP addresses here, which is just all zeros. And we're going to open up those same ports, so 80. And then we're going to do that one more time for 443. And then one more time, we're going to do that for the Coolify port, which is 8000. And when we're done with that, we can come to the bottom right here and add those rules. Now, if I refresh this page, Coolify pops up, asks me to register my user. So I'll just quickly go ahead and do that. And hit create account. Let's just quickly set this up just to show you what you're getting. I can connect it to a remote server as well, but I'm on my own machine here, so let's do that. And here you can create your first project, which is just a container of different applications you can install. And to look at that, we can go to try and deploy our first resource. Now, before we do that, we can see Coolify is giving us a warning here that it cannot connect to the real-time service. And again, that's more ports that we need to open. So the Coolify docs also tell you to open up 6001 and 6002. So I'm just going to do that in Oracle here. And because this is a range, I can just create a single rule for these. And I'll also allow those on my server here. And now when I come back, that warning is gone. So great. Now that we've set up Coolify and we can access it, let's take a quick look at it. Here you can see that we can deploy applications using GitHub and public or private repositories, using Docker Compose files. We can deploy databases, and there's a whole range of services that it lets you deploy with one click. And this is a great way to replace any existing applications that you might subscribe to with open source, self-hosted stuff. So for example, you can host your own book library, you can host your own audiobookshelf, you can run a Bitcoin node on it, and just a whole range of other useful applications that now you can deploy on your free VPS. If this still feels like a lot, there's also another application called Docploy. I have used this as well, and I found this to be a little bit more beginner friendly. So if Coolify still feels like a lot, you can try Docploy as well. And so for example, I'm going to deploy Audiobookshelf so that I can cancel my Audible subscription. And here you can see that it's already loaded in this Docker Compose file for you, and will configure everything as soon as you click deploy. So it finished deploying that application for me, and if I go into the settings for that service, you can see it even gave me a domain name I can now access that service with. And so here, my Audible clone is already set up and ready to use. This also solves the problem of backups, because you can go in here, and if you have an S3 storage available, you can back up your server there. If you need to access your terminal, you can access it through here. You can also access your terminals for the actual containers here as well. So it's a great way to manage your VPS. Okay, so that's it. You have your server up and running, you have a way to connect to it, and you have a way to manage it. If this helped, remember to hit that like, and I'll see you later.